downstairs, in the visitor's parlor, they told him. He was a peasant, apparently a farmer. They smiled and said, he is from the country, which, of course, he knew meant that he was, well, shabbily dressed, not particularly clean. At least that's what from the country meant then. So he thought for a moment, and he looked at his friend who brought the news and said, I'm busy. I really can't take the time. Tell him to come back. Maybe I'll have time to see him later. Good choice, his friend said, and went back to deliver the message. And so when he went to the window and watched the man exit, his hat in hand, he paused only for a minute to look back at the beautiful edifice adorned with crosses and statues before he turned away. There is no record that Vincent ever saw his father alive again. Vincent de Paul, that is, the patron of our diocese. His picture in stained glass over there, the last one on that row. A great and wonderful man, we say, and truly he became so, but not until much later. You see, Vincent came from a country family. The peasant was his father, and he was of peasant stock. But he knew, and his family understood, that one of the ways up in his day, in 16th century France, was to enter the seminary and to become a priest. And then, if you had the right stuff, the manners and the way with words and the ability to exercise proper etiquette, you could attach yourself to one of the wealthy and aristocratic France. They would support you rightly, and if you were a good man, you could help your lower class family. And Vincent knew that he had the right stuff. Indeed, he did. He was ordained at the young age of 19. He immediately became popular amongst the aristocratic class. He even became the chaplain to Queen Margaret of Valois. She spread the word. A delightful young man, so serious about church and things. Pretty soon, all of the ladies of the aristocratic class flocked about. He would listen to the scintillating conversations of the salons. Oh, what a wonderful life he was about to lead. And money began to pour in. Truly, his image of what it was to be perfect, accepted, and received into polite society was coming true. And better than that, the Gandhi family. G-O-N-D-I, the Gandhis, they said, would you come, live on our estate, tutor our children, and be our personal chaplain? They had money beyond the wildest dreams of anyone. He had made it, and at such a young age, he was only in his 30s and 40s, when he was with them, it would be wonderful. His perfection had been attained. And then one day, he got a call from one of the serfs, for all practical purposes, the peasants who worked the land there on the Gandhi estate. The man was dying. It was his job to go and give last rites, and so he did. He did his job, offered the sacraments, and as he turned to leave, the old man grabbed his cassock. He turned around and he said, "Thank you, Father. I was in mortal sin, and if you had not given me the sacraments, I would have gone to hell." Vincent listened, saw the man's eyes filled with tears, and he turned away shaken while the dying man was in peace. He suddenly realized that being a priest, being a perfect priest, was nothing like he thought it was. His notion of perfection was, in fact, radically imperfect. From that day forward, this middle-aged saint began to involve himself in causes, well, you can't name a charitable cause he wasn't involved in. He was saving the children of prostitutes, helping galley slaves, founding congregations of men to help educate parish priests, and women to help serve the poor in the cities. The Vincentians and the Daughters of Charity all claim him as their father. In his day, he was as well known as Mother Teresa and our own. He was legendary for his preaching, and everyone sought his counsel. And when he died at 80, all he knew, he said, was that I love the poor and I love God. He said to the Lord, I have done what you've commanded. Now do what you promised. And into his hands he went. I love Vincent. I love that he's our diocesan patron. He's one of my absolute favorite saints. I must confess partially because he didn't do anything until he turned middle-aged. He gives me all of it. If he'd stayed on the course he went on as a young man, nobody would know. It all changed in his 40s and 50s, and the world changed around him. Because you see, he came to understand something that's very striking. You can't be perfect if you're going to be a Christian. You can't. You can't. Oh, I know. The world thinks that's what we're about. Christians think that's what we're about. In fact, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of would-be Christians who think that because you have to be perfect to be one, or you at least have to be striving for perfection, well, they gave it up. Because they say, well, I'm incapable of it. I hate to say to them, they're closer to the truth than many who think they are. They are incapable of it. To think of perfection and strive for it is to have some image of what is complete and right about oneself, about the world. But who knows that but God? Who knows what the perfect Michael McCarran is? I don't. What I would have thought he would be at 20 and what I think he might be at 50 are very different. And it'll be different if, God willing, I live into my 70s or 80s, as did Vincent. To be perfect means that you have to have an image of what is valuable. So that perfection means that if I see, like Vincent and his father, someone who seems to be disheveled or not with all the mental gifts I think they need to have, it's easy to write them off. It means if I have this notion of perfection, then I can judge my husband or evaluate my wife according to the standard I think that she should meet. My children have to come to a certain criteria and be a certain person, the group I'm in school with. Well, if I'm going to be perfect, I'll be perfectly aligned with those who wear the right things, say the right things, do the right things, get the right grades, are on the right team, have the right rules. In the meantime, I cut out everything else. I overlook all the things that husband does, day in and day out, to provide for the family. Because he doesn't meet the perfection, I think. I don't look at what my parents do all the time, because they don't perfectly understand me. They're not as cool as somebody else's parents I think they are. Get rid of my life, because to be perfect means I have to sacrifice my principles when it comes to drugs or alcohol or sexuality. Oh, I may be perfect, all right. But like Vincent, the idea of my perfection will be very passing and very frankly, very shallow. No, you can't be perfect if you're going to be a Christian. If you're going to be a Christian, what Vincent understood is you got to be holy. And being holy is not the same thing as being perfect. Holiness may lead to it, but it will lead to a perfection I can only glimpse.